The smell of burning garlic filled my kitchen as I stared at my phone, reading the text that would change everything. Emergency work dinner tonight. Rain check on anniversary. Love you. M. 22 years of marriage, and Marta cancels our anniversary dinner with a text message. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Nick Patterson, 45 years old, financial manager at Henderson & Associates, and apparently the kind of husband whose wife can't be bothered to call when she's about to destroy what's left of our relationship. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spend my days managing other people's money while my own marriage account was running on empty. I turned off the stove and poured myself a generous glass of the wine I'd been saving. Our suburban kitchen felt smaller somehow, the yellow walls that Marta had insisted on painting last spring now looking sickly under the fluorescent lights. Through the window, I could see Mrs. Doyle from next door pretending to water her already drowning petunias while obviously watching my house. That woman had a PhD in neighborhood gossip. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Marta. Thought you should know what your wife is really up to tonight. Check the attachments. A friend. The anonymous number meant nothing to me, but the screenshots that followed meant everything. Text messages between Marta and someone named Lucas Rivera, intimate messages, hotel receipts, and a selfie of them at Romano's, our favorite restaurant, the place where I'd proposed 23 years ago. Can't wait to have you all to myself tonight, one message read. Nick's making dinner at home like the good little house husband he is. Good little house husband? That's what I was to her. The reliable one who managed the finances, fixed the leaky faucets, and apparently provided the perfect cover story while she screwed around with some guy named Lucas. I scrolled through more messages, each one a knife twist. They'd been at this for months, maybe longer. All those work dinners and client meetings. I'd been such a trusting fool. But here's the thing about us financial managers. We're good at calculating risks and returns. And right now, Marta had no idea what kind of return she was about to get on her investment in betrayal. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. Mrs. Doyle's watering suddenly became very focused on the petunias closest to my driveway. Evening, Nick. Marta working late again? Something like that, I replied, getting into my Honda Civic. If she only knew. The Grand Plaza Hotel sat downtown like a monument to expensive bad decisions. I'd driven past it 1,000 times, never imagining I'd be here on my anniversary, watching my wife cheat on me. The valet parking was full of luxury cars, BMWs, Mercedes, a bright red Porsche that screamed midlife crisis. I parked across the street and waited. At 7:30 p.m., Marta's silver Lexus pulled up. She stepped out wearing the black dress I'd bought her for her birthday, the one she'd never worn, because there was never anywhere special to go. Apparently, adultery qualified as special. 5 minutes later, a white BMW pulled up. The man who got out was everything I wasn't, tall, tanned, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. He had that artificial confidence that comes with expensive cologne and a gym membership. This had to be Lucas. They met in the lobby like actors in a bad romance movie. Air kisses, his hand on the small of her back, her laugh, the one she used to save for me, echoing off the marble walls. I followed at a distance as they took the elevator to the 7th floor. Room 712. I memorized the number and headed back to the lobby. Excuse me, I said to the concierge, a young woman with a practiced smile. I'd like to send something to room 712. Of course, sir. What would you like to send? A bottle of your best champagne, with a card. She handed me a small card and envelope. I thought for a moment, then wrote, Congratulations on your engagement. May your future be everything you deserve. A well-wisher. Please charge it to the room, I said, sliding a 20 across the desk. 20 minutes later, I watched from the parking garage as Lucas stormed out of the hotel, Marta hurrying behind him in her coat. Even from a distance, I could see they were arguing. My little gift had apparently caused some confusion, but I wasn't done. Not even close. Lucas's BMW was parked in a premium spot, gleaming under the garage lights. I'd brought a small toolkit, the same one I used for household repairs. Funny how the skills transfer. I keyed a nice long scratch along the driver's side, then used my pocket knife to let some air out of his tires. Not enough to make them flat, just enough to make his drive home interesting. For the grand finale, I poured the bottle of fish sauce I'd grabbed from our kitchen through his slightly open sunroof. The smell would be a gift that kept on giving. Security cameras were everywhere, but I kept my head down and moved quickly. Just another middle-aged guy walking through a parking garage, invisible, forgettable. I was almost to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. "Hey, you!" I didn't turn around, just kept walking. The footsteps got faster. "Security, stop right there!" I broke into a run, my heart pounding. The exit was just ahead. I could hear the guard talking into his radio, but I was already in my car, engine started, pulling out into traffic. My hands were shaking as I drove home. 22 years of being the good guy, and it had taken me exactly 1 hour to become someone I didn't recognize. The weird part? It felt good. I was pulling into my driveway when I saw her. Rachel Morrison, sitting on my front porch steps with a suitcase beside her. Rachel was Marta's best friend since college, an elementary school teacher with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She was also going through her own messy divorce. She stood up as I approached, and I could see she'd been crying. "We need to talk," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Marta's not who you think she is." Rachel followed me into the kitchen, her suitcase wheels clicking on the hardwood floor. She looked around at the abandoned anniversary dinner, the cold pasta, the opened wine, the romantic candles I'd blown out in disgust. "She really didn't come home," Rachel said. It wasn't a question. I poured her a glass of wine and sat down across from her at the kitchen table. "How long have you known?" "About Lucas, 3 months. She took a sip of wine and grimaced. "About the others, much longer." "Others?" The word hit me like a physical blow. Rachel reached into her purse and pulled out a thick manila folder. "I've been documenting everything. I kept hoping she'd come to her senses, but..." She shrugged helplessly. I opened the folder. Photos, printed emails, credit card statements, hotel receipts. The evidence of my wife's double life spread across our kitchen table like a crime scene investigation. There was Marcus from her yoga class. That was 2 years ago. Then David from the advertising agency. Lucas is just the latest. Rachel's voice was steady, but I could see the anger in her eyes. "She talks about you like you're some kind of burden, Nick, like you're holding her back from her real life." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "She's your best friend. Was my best friend." Rachel's laugh was bitter. "You want to know why I'm really here? Why I have a suitcase with me?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. "Because I found out today that she's been sleeping with my husband too, my soon-to-be ex-husband Tom." Rachel's voice cracked. "While I was going through the worst time of my life dealing with his gambling addiction and our divorce, my best friend was screwing him behind my back." The wine glass in my hand suddenly felt very heavy. "Jesus, Rachel." "She doesn't know that I know about Tom, but she's about to find out that I know about everything else." Rachel leaned forward, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked dangerous. "I want to destroy her, Nick. And I think you do too." I thought about the fish sauce slowly seeping into Lucas's car upholstery, about the confusion on Marta's face in the hotel lobby. Rachel was right. I did want to destroy her. "What did you have in mind?" Rachel smiled, and it wasn't her usual gentle teacher smile. This was something sharper, more calculated. "Marta's weakness has always been her image. She cares more about what people think of her than anything else. Her reputation, her social standing, her perfect life. That's what matters to her. Rachel pulled out her phone. She has no idea how many people already suspect what she's really like. Meaning? Meaning she's made enemies, Nick. Lots of them. Her co-workers think she's a backstabbing climber. Her book club friends are tired of her constant bragging. Even her own mother has started making comments about how she's changed. Rachel scrolled through her contacts. All these people need is proof. I looked at the evidence spread across the table. And we have proof. We have more than proof. We have a network. Rachel's eyes were bright with possibility. I know everyone she knows. I have access to her social media accounts. She gave me her passwords years ago. I know her schedule, her habits, her secrets. This sounds like more than just exposing an affair. It is. Rachel leaned back in her chair. Marta destroyed my marriage, my friendship, my trust in people. She's been destroying your marriage for years. Don't you think it's time she faced some consequences? I thought about coming home to an empty house every night, about the way Marta had been treating me like a roommate instead of a husband, about the good little house husband comment that was still burning in my chest. What's the first step? Rachel's smile widened. We start with her book club meeting tomorrow night. 12 women who think they're Marta's friends, but who actually can't stand her. They meet at the community center every Thursday at 7. And you're going to accidentally show up with some very interesting photos. I looked at Rachel, really looked at her. I'd known her for 15 years as Marta's quiet, sweet friend. The woman sitting across from me now was someone entirely different, someone with a plan. Why should I trust you? I asked. Because we both want the same thing, she said simply. We want Marta to feel the way she's made us feel. Humiliated, betrayed, alone. I finished my wine and looked around the kitchen that had felt like a prison just a few hours ago. Now, it felt like a war room. Okay, I said. Let's do it. Rachel reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her fingers were warm, steady. There's something else, Nick. What? I don't have anywhere to go tonight. Tom changed the locks on our house, and I can't face staying with my parents and explaining everything. She gestured toward her suitcase. Could I stay here, just for tonight? I looked at her suitcase, then at her hopeful expression. Marta was probably spending the night at Lucas's place anyway, assuming they'd worked out their champagne confusion. The guest room is yours, I said. As Rachel carried her suitcase upstairs, I cleaned up the evidence from the kitchen table. Tomorrow night, Marta's carefully constructed world would start falling apart, and for the first time in months, I was looking forward to tomorrow. I was loading the dishwasher when Rachel came back downstairs, having changed into jeans and a sweater. She looked younger somehow, less burdened. Nick, she said. Thank you for believing me, for letting me stay. Thank you for telling me the truth. We stood there for a moment in comfortable silence. Outside, Mrs. Doyle's porch light was still on, and I wondered if she'd noticed Rachel's arrival. By tomorrow, the whole neighborhood would probably know that Marta's best friend had spent the night at our house while Marta was nowhere to be found. Good. Let them wonder. Thursday evening arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of October night that makes you forget winter is coming. I'd spent the day at work, pretending to care about quarterly reports, while actually planning the evening strategy with Rachel via text message. Marta had come home Wednesday morning with a story about staying at her sister's place after their work dinner ran late. She'd seemed nervous, checking her phone constantly, but I'd played the part of the understanding husband perfectly. I even made her coffee the way she liked it. Extra cream, 2 sugars. She had no idea I'd spent the previous evening with Rachel, going through every piece of evidence, planning our approach. She had no idea that Rachel was staying in our guest room, having supposedly found a temporary rental after her separation from Tom. I'll be at book club tonight, Marta announced, adjusting her earrings in the hallway mirror. She was wearing her best casual outfit, designer jeans and a silk blouse that cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. "What are you reading this month?" I asked, though I already knew. Rachel had told me everything. Some romance novel. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Honestly, the book choices have gotten so trashy lately. Marta grabbed her purse and keys. "Don't wait up." After she left, Rachel emerged from the guest room. She'd been hiding upstairs whenever Marta was home, playing the part of the friend who was giving Marta space during this difficult time. "Ready?" she asked. I looked at the manila envelope in my hands, filled with carefully selected photos and documents. As ready as I'll ever be. The Millbrook Community Center was a squat brick building that hosted everything from AA meetings to children's birthday parties. The book club met in Conference Room B, a windowless space with fluorescent lighting and the faint smell of industrial carpet cleaner. I could hear voices as I approached the door, 12 women discussing literature, wine, and life. I recognized most of the voices. These were women I'd known for years, through neighborhood parties and school events. Women who'd always been polite to me, but had never seemed particularly interested in my existence. I knocked on the door. "Come in," called Sandra Walsh, the book club president and the neighborhood's unofficial social coordinator. I opened the door and stepped inside, putting on my best confused husband expression. "I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm looking for Marta. She left her medication at home, and she needs to take it with dinner." 12 pairs of eyes stared at me. I scanned the room quickly. No Marta. "She's not here, Nick," said Jennifer Chen, a real estate agent who lived 3 streets over. "She canceled about an hour ago, said she had a work emergency." "A work emergency?" I let confusion creep into my voice. "But she told me she was coming here." The women exchanged glances. I could practically see the wheels turning. "Maybe she got the time wrong?" suggested Linda Morrison, though her tone indicated she didn't believe it. I pulled out my phone and pretended to check something. "That's strange. She just texted me from here 20 minutes ago." I showed them the screen, which displayed a message I'd crafted carefully. "Book club is boring tonight. Wish I was home with you instead." More glances, more wheels turning. "Well," said Sandra, "she's definitely not here. Maybe she's confused about where she is?" I let that hang in the air for a moment, then reached into my jacket pocket. "Actually, maybe you could help me with something else. I've been getting some strange messages and I'm not sure what to make of them." I pulled out one of the photos, Marta and Lucas at Romano's, clearly intimate, clearly not discussing business. I held it up like I was genuinely confused. "Someone sent me this. They said they thought I should know, but I'm sure there's an innocent explanation." The room went silent. Sandra reached for the photo with trembling fingers. "Oh my God," whispered Jennifer. "Is that Lucas Rivera?" asked Linda. "The real estate guy?" I nodded, pulling out another photo. There were several pictures, and some text messages. I showed them a printout of the good little house husband exchange. The silence stretched until Sandra finally spoke. "Nick, I think you should sit down." For the next hour, I learned things about my wife that I'd never suspected. The book club women, freed by the evidence in front of them, shared years of accumulated resentment. Marta had been spreading rumors about Sandra's marriage. She'd stolen Jennifer's client list and passed it to a competitor. She'd borrowed money from Linda and never paid it back. She'd made cruel comments about other members' appearances, careers, and families. "We've all suspected she was having an affair," admitted Carol Peterson, a quiet woman who usually said very little. "She's been so secretive lately, and she keeps bragging about this new friend who takes her to expensive restaurants." "She told us you were boring," said Jennifer bluntly. "She said you never wanted to go anywhere or do anything interesting." I felt heat rise in my cheeks, but I kept my voice steady. "I see. She also said you were bad with money, added Linda. She complained that you were holding her back from the lifestyle she deserved. Bad with money. I was a financial manager. I'd been handling our finances successfully for 20 years. But apparently, I was the problem. By the time I left the community center, I had 12 new allies. The book club women were angry, not just at Marta's betrayal of me, but at years of her treating them poorly while pretending to be their friend. We'll handle this, Sandra had promised. Marta needs to learn that actions have consequences. I drove home slowly, savoring the evening air through my open windows. Phase 1 was complete. By tomorrow, everyone in our social circle would know about Marta's affair. But that was just the beginning. Rachel was waiting for me in the kitchen, 2 glasses of wine already poured. "How did it go?" she asked. "Better than expected." I sat down and accepted the wine gratefully. "They're furious, not just about the affair but about everything. Apparently Marta has been making enemies for years." "Good." Rachel's smile was satisfied. "Phase 2 starts tomorrow." "Which is?" "Marta's workplace. I have a friend in HR at the advertising agency." Rachel pulled out her phone. "Marta's been having affairs with co-workers for years. That's actually against company policy, especially when one person is in a position of authority over the other." I raised my eyebrows. "Lucas works there too?" "Lucas is one of their biggest clients. If it comes out that Marta's been sleeping with him, it could be seen as a conflict of interest. Maybe even grounds for dismissal." I thought about Marta's pride in her career, her constant talk about her next promotion, her identity as a successful professional woman. That would destroy her. "Yes," Rachel said simply. "It would." We clinked glasses, and I realized that somewhere in the past 48 hours, I'd stopped being the good guy. The weird part? I was okay with that. Outside, Mrs. Doyle's porch light was on again. Let her watch. Soon, she'd have plenty to see. Friday morning brought the first signs that our plan was working. Marta's phone had been buzzing constantly since 6 a.m., calls from book club members, neighbors, and friends who'd heard about the situation. She handled each call with increasing desperation, her voice getting higher and more defensive with each conversation. "It's not what it looks like," I heard her say to someone. "Those photos are taken out of context." "No, I am not having an affair. I can't believe people are spreading rumors like this. Sandra is just jealous because her own marriage is falling apart." I made breakfast and coffee, playing the supportive husband role while internally cataloging every lie. Rachel had left early for school, but not before reminding me that her friend in HR was expecting my call at 10 a.m. "I have to go to work early today," Marta announced, grabbing her purse and barely touching her coffee. "There's a crisis with the Morrison account." The Morrison account. I wondered if that was code for damage control with Lucas. After she left, I called in sick to work and dialed the number Rachel had given me. "Hartwell and Associates, Human Resources. This is Patricia speaking." "Hi, Patricia. This is Nick Patterson. Rachel Morrison said you might be able to help me with a sensitive situation involving my wife, Marta Patterson." "Oh, yes. Rachel mentioned you might call. I'm so sorry about what you're going through." Patricia turned out to be a thorough professional who took workplace ethics seriously. Very seriously. When I explained the situation and offered to provide documentation, she was immediately interested. "Company policy is very clear about relationships with clients," she said. "If an employee is involved romantically with a client, it must be disclosed to prevent conflicts of interest. Has your wife disclosed her relationship with Mr. Rivera?" "I don't believe so." "And you have evidence of this relationship?" I looked at the folder of photos and documents on my kitchen table. "Extensive evidence." "I think we should meet." An hour later, I was sitting in Patricia's office on the 15th floor of the Hartwell building, watching her review the evidence with increasing concern. "This is quite serious," she said finally. Not just the undisclosed client relationship, but the duration and secretive nature of it. It raises questions about every deal she's worked on with Mr. Rivera's company. What happens now? I'll need to conduct a formal investigation. Your wife will be interviewed, as will Mr. Rivera. Depending on what we find, there could be disciplinary action up to and including termination. Patricia paused, studying one of the photos. There's something else. Your wife is up for a promotion to senior vice president. This investigation will put that on hold indefinitely. I thought about Marta's excitement over the potential promotion, how she'd been planning to redecorate her office and talking about the salary increase. How long will the investigation take? 2 to 3 weeks, typically. We'll start by placing your wife on administrative leave while we review her client files and conduct interviews. Administrative leave. Marta would be furious. I left the Hartwell building feeling lighter than I had in months. By the time I got home, Rachel was already there, grading papers at the kitchen table. How did it go? She asked. Better than expected. She's going to be placed on administrative leave while they investigate. Rachel looked up from her papers, her eyes bright with interest. When? Probably Monday. Perfect timing. Rachel set down her red pen. Because I have news too. Good news or bad news? Depends on your perspective. Rachel's smile was wicked. Tom called me today. Apparently Marta contacted him this morning, asking if he could provide her with an alibi for Tuesday night. I felt a chill run down my spine. An alibi? She told him that someone was spreading rumors about her having an affair, and she needed people to confirm that she was with friends on Tuesday evening. Rachel laughed. Tom, being the idiot that he is, told her he'd be happy to help. But she wasn't with Tom on Tuesday. No, she wasn't. She was with Lucas at the Grand Plaza Hotel. Rachel pulled out her phone. But here's the interesting part. Tom recorded the conversation. He's been recording all his calls since our divorce proceedings started. She played the recording. Marta's voice was clear and desperate. I need you to tell people I was with you and Rachel on Tuesday night. We had dinner at that Italian place downtown. You remember, right? Tom's voice. Sure, Marta. Whatever you need. Marta. This is really important, Tom. My marriage depends on it. The recording ended, and Rachel looked at me expectantly. She's asking him to lie for her, I said slowly. She's asking him to commit perjury if this ever goes to court. She's also admitting that she's lying about where she was Tuesday night. Rachel saved the recording to her phone. Tom might be an idiot, but he's not stupid enough to get involved in someone else's marital problems. He sent me the recording as a peace offering. I sat down heavily in my chair. The scope of Marta's deception was becoming clearer every day. It wasn't just the affair. It was the lies, the manipulation, the willingness to drag other people into her web of deceit. There's more, Rachel continued. I talked to some of the other teachers at my school. 3 of them have had run-ins with Marta over the years. She's been spreading gossip about me, trying to damage my reputation. What kind of gossip? That I'm an alcoholic, that I'm having an affair with the principal, that I'm a bad teacher who doesn't care about her students. Rachel's voice was steady, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. She's been systematically trying to destroy my career and my friendships. I reached across the table and took her hand. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be angry. Rachel squeezed my fingers. Because now we have even more reason to make sure she faces consequences for what she's done. That evening, Marta came home late and went straight to bed, claiming she had a headache. I could hear her on the phone in our bedroom, her voice muffled but urgent. She was calling in favors, trying to control the narrative, attempting to manage the crisis. But some crises can't be managed. Some consequences can't be avoided. And Marta was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that usually made me optimistic about the week ahead. Today, it felt like anticipation. Marta was unusually quiet during breakfast, checking her phone obsessively and barely touching her toast. She'd spent the weekend fielding calls and trying to do damage control, but the story was spreading faster than she could contain it. "I might be late tonight," she said, gathering her things. "Big meeting with the Morrison account." I nodded sympathetically. "Good luck." She kissed me on the cheek, a perfunctory gesture that felt more like muscle memory than affection, and headed for the door. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. "Nick, it's Patricia from HR. I wanted to let you know that we've just called your wife in for her interview. She's being placed on administrative leave effective immediately." I closed my eyes and smiled. "Thank you for letting me know." "There's something else. We've discovered some irregularities in her expense reports related to client entertainment. It appears she's been billing personal expenses to the company." "Personal expenses?" "Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, gifts, all charged to client accounts but with no legitimate business purpose that we can identify. Fraud." Marta hadn't just been having an affair on company time. She'd been billing the company for it. "What happens now?" "The investigation will expand. We're looking at potential termination and possible criminal charges if the fraud is extensive enough." After Patricia hung up, I sat in my kitchen feeling something I hadn't experienced in years: complete satisfaction. Marta's carefully constructed professional life was crumbling, and it was entirely her own doing. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Phase 3 tonight. Are you ready?" Phase 3 was the confrontation with our former friends. The couples we'd socialized with for years. The people who'd gradually distanced themselves from me while embracing Marta's version of our marriage troubles. At 7 p.m., Rachel and I walked into Murphy's Tavern, a local bar where our old crowd gathered every Monday for trivia night. The usual suspects were there: Jake and Susan Morrison, Dave and Kelly Chen, Mark and Lisa Patterson, no relation, despite the shared name, and Tom Richards, Rachel's soon-to-be ex-husband. They all looked up as we entered together. The conversations stopped mid-sentence. "Nick!" Jake called out, his voice overly cheerful. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Or me," added Rachel, her voice cool. We approached their table, and I could feel the tension radiating from the group. They knew. Everyone knew. "Where's Marta?" asked Susan, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "Probably with her boyfriend," I said casually, pulling out a chair. "You know, Lucas Rivera, the real estate guy she's been screwing for the past 6 months." The table went dead silent. Dave Chen cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Nick, maybe we should—" he started. "Should what?" I interrupted. "Pretend we don't all know what's been going on? Pretend you haven't all been talking about my marriage behind my back?" Kelly Chen shifted in her seat. "We weren't talking about—" "Yes, you were." Rachel's voice cut through the awkwardness like a blade. "You've all been talking about how Nick is such a boring husband, how Marta deserves better, how she's outgrown her marriage." Mark Patterson looked genuinely uncomfortable. "Rachel, that's not—" "It's exactly what you've been saying." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a screenshot Rachel had captured from Susan's Facebook page. Susan posted this last week. "Some people settle for mediocrity in marriage. Others choose to pursue happiness." Susan's face flushed red. "That wasn't about you." "Really? Because you posted it right after Marta told you I was holding her back from her dreams." I looked around the table. "You all knew she was having an affair, didn't you?" The silence stretched uncomfortably. "We suspected," Jake finally admitted. "But it wasn't our place to— To what? Tell me? Warn me that my wife was making a fool of me?" I leaned forward. "Or were you all enjoying the show too much?" "That's not fair," protested Lisa. "Fair?" Rachel laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what's not fair." She pulled out a folder and began spreading photos across the table. Not just pictures of Marta and Lucas, but screenshots of group chats where our friends had been dissecting my marriage and taking Marta's side in every argument. "Here's Dave calling Nick pathetically clueless," Rachel read from one screenshot. "Here's Kelly saying Marta deserves to be happy with someone who appreciates her. And here's Susan organizing a girls' night specifically so Marta could meet up with Lucas afterward." The friends exchanged guilty glances. They'd been caught, and they knew it. "You all helped her," I said quietly. "You provided cover stories, alibis, and emotional support while she destroyed our marriage. You made me feel like I was the problem." "Nick, we never meant," started Jake. "You never meant to get caught," I interrupted. "There's a difference." Tom Richards, who had been silent throughout the exchange, suddenly spoke up. "I have something to say." Everyone turned to look at him. He pulled out his phone. "Marta called me Friday morning," he said. "She wanted me to lie for her, to provide a fake alibi. He played the recording Rachel had shared with me. She also offered to sleep with me if I'd help her." The table erupted in shocked murmurs. Even Rachel looked surprised by that detail. "She what?" Susan gasped. "She offered to have intimacy with me in exchange for lying about where she was Tuesday night," Tom repeated. "I recorded the whole conversation." I looked at Rachel, who was staring at her ex-husband with a mixture of disgust and vindication. "So not only is she cheating on Nick," Tom continued, "but she was willing to cheat on her boyfriend too, just to cover her tracks." The friends sat in stunned silence. The woman they'd been supporting and defending had just been revealed as someone far worse than any of them had imagined. "I think we should go," Kelly said quietly. "Good idea," I replied. "But before you do, there's something you should know." I stood up, looking down at the people who had once been my closest friends. "Marta was fired today, for fraud. She's been billing her affair to the company as business expenses." I smiled coldly. "She's also facing potential criminal charges." The shock on their faces was worth every moment of pain they'd caused me. "But the best part," I continued, "she has no idea that Rachel and I are the ones who exposed her. She thinks you did it." I pulled out my phone and showed them a text message Marta had sent me an hour earlier. "I know it was one of our friends who sent those photos. I'm going to find out who betrayed us." "She's going to come after all of you," Rachel added helpfully. "She's going to blame you for destroying her life." We left them sitting at the table, their trivia night ruined, their comfortable assumptions shattered. As we walked to the parking lot, I felt lighter than I had in years. "That went well," Rachel said. "Better than well. That was perfect." She smiled and took my arm. "Ready for the finale?" I looked back at Murphy's Tavern, where our former friends were probably trying to figure out how to distance themselves from Marta before she came after them. More than ready. The final act began on a Thursday evening, exactly 2 weeks after the book club revelation. Marta had been officially terminated from Hartwell & Associates, her professional reputation was in ruins, and the criminal investigation was moving forward. But she still didn't know who was responsible. She'd been staying at Lucas's apartment since her firing, but their relationship was cracking under the pressure. I knew this because Rachel had maintained her friendship with Patricia in HR, who had contacts throughout the local business community. Lucas was facing his own professional consequences. Several of his real estate deals were being scrutinized for potential conflicts of interest. "She's desperate," Rachel reported over dinner. Patricia heard from a mutual friend that Marta's been trying to get a job at other agencies, but word has gotten around. No one wants to hire someone under investigation for fraud. I cut into my steak, savoring both the meal and the information. What about Lucas? His business is hemorrhaging clients. Apparently, his reputation for creative client relations was already questionable. This just confirmed what people suspected. We were eating at Romano's, the same restaurant where Marta and Lucas had conducted their affair. I'd made reservations specifically to claim this space back. The irony wasn't lost on me. "There's something else," Rachel continued. Marta's been asking around about you. She wants to know how you're handling the separation, whether you're dating anyone. What did you tell people? Rachel smiled. That you're doing remarkably well, that you seem happier than you've been in years, that you've been spending a lot of time with a mystery woman who's been very supportive. Over the past 2 weeks, Rachel and I had grown closer. What had started as an alliance of convenience had become something more genuine. She was staying in my guest room officially, but the boundaries had begun to blur. We cooked together, watched movies together, talked late into the night about our marriages, our dreams, our plans for the future. She's going to figure it out eventually, I said. I know. That's why tomorrow night is so important. Tomorrow night was Marta's birthday. For the past 22 years, I'd thrown her a party, nothing elaborate, just close friends and family at our house. This year, obviously, there would be no party, but Rachel had a different idea. She's expecting to spend her birthday alone and miserable, Rachel explained. Lucas is out of town on business, probably trying to salvage what's left of his client base. Her friends have all distanced themselves. Her family is disappointed in her. So we're going to give her a birthday surprise she'll never forget. The next evening, Rachel and I drove to Lucas's apartment complex. It was one of those modern developments with names like luxury living and amenities that looked impressive in brochures but felt sterile in person. We parked across the street and waited. At 7:30 p.m., right on schedule, a delivery truck arrived. The driver carried a large gift basket to the front door of Lucas's building and buzzed apartment 314. Delivery for Marta Patterson, we heard him say through the intercom. I didn't order anything, came Marta's voice, tinny through the speaker. It's a birthday gift, from a secret admirer. There was a pause, then the door buzzed open. The gift basket was filled with all of Marta's favorite things: expensive chocolates, imported wine, gourmet cheeses, and a beautiful bouquet of roses. But it also contained something special, a photo album. Rachel had spent weeks creating it. Every page documented Marta's affair in chronological order: restaurant receipts, hotel bills, photos, text messages, credit card statements. The final page contained a group photo from last year's Christmas party, showing all of us together when we were still pretending to be friends. But the real surprise wasn't the photo album. It was the note attached to it. Happy birthday, Marta. Thank you for showing us who you really are. We couldn't have exposed you without your help. Your loving husband and best friend. We waited in the car, watching Lucas's apartment window. 20 minutes later, we saw lights flicking on and off, shadows moving frantically behind the curtains. My phone rang. You bastard! Marta's voice was shrill, barely controlled. You did this! You destroyed my life! Happy birthday, sweetheart, I said calmly. How could you? After everything we've been through, how could you be so cruel? Cruel? I laughed. Marta, I didn't sleep with your best friend's husband. I didn't commit fraud. I didn't lie to everyone we know. I just made sure people found out what you'd been doing. This is Rachel's idea, isn't it? She's been poisoning you against me. I looked at Rachel, who was listening to the conversation with a satisfied smile. Rachel didn't poison me against you, I said. She just helped me see what everyone else already knew, that you're selfish, dishonest, and cruel. That you've been making my life miserable for years while pretending to be the victim. I want to come home, Marta said, her voice breaking. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. No, we can't. Please, Nick. I made mistakes, but I love you. I've always loved you. You love the security I provided. You love having someone to blame for your problems. But you don't love me. I paused, watching the frantic shadows in Lucas's apartment window. And I don't love you anymore either. What do you mean? I mean I'm filing for divorce on Monday. I mean I've moved on. I mean your best friend is sitting next to me right now, and she's been living in our house for the past month. The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. Rachel. Marta's voice was barely a whisper. "Hi, Marta," Rachel said, leaning toward my phone. "Surprise. You're together?" "We're together," I confirmed. "We've been together since the night you chose Lucas over your marriage. While you were destroying your life, we were building something new." "But she's my best friend." "Was your best friend," Rachel corrected. "Before you slept with my husband, before you tried to destroy my reputation, before you showed me what kind of person you really are." Marta was crying now, deep sobs that might have moved me 6 months ago. Now, they just sounded like self-pity. "This isn't over," she said finally. "Yes, it is," I replied. "It's been over for a long time. We just made it official." I hung up and turned to Rachel. She was looking at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years, genuine admiration and affection. "How do you feel?" she asked. I considered the question seriously. How did I feel? For the first time in years, I felt like myself. Not the boring husband, not the good little house husband, not the reliable one who could be taken for granted. I felt like a man who had taken control of his life and refused to be a victim. "I feel free," I said. Rachel leaned over and kissed me. It was our first real kiss, and it tasted like victory. As we drove home, to our house, our life, our future, I thought about the man I'd been 6 months ago. That man would have been horrified by what I'd done. He would have called it cruel, vindictive, unnecessary. But that man had been a fool. He'd believed that being good meant being passive, that being kind meant accepting abuse, that being loyal meant enabling betrayal. I wasn't that man anymore. I was someone who understood that sometimes the only way to stop being a victim is to become something else entirely. Someone who had learned that revenge, when it's justified and perfectly executed, doesn't have to feel dirty. It can feel like justice. 3 months later, Marta and Lucas had both left town, their reputations and careers in ruins. Our former friends had learned to keep their opinions about other people's marriages to themselves. Rachel and I were planning our wedding. Mrs. Doyle still watched from her window, but now she waved when she saw us. Even the neighborhood gossip approved of our story. The wronged husband and the loyal friend who found love after betrayal. It was a much better story than the truth. But then again, the best revenge stories usually are.